Okay, The Last Exorcism. The reason I think that this subject matter makes for such effective horror films is because if you think about it, a lot of people already have, this built-in fear and apprehension towards, issues like demons and possession and what have you. So it really presents an interesting opportunity for like the director to take that inbuilt fear and to run with it, basically to exploit it and to nurture it. And it baffles me really that so few directors and so few storytellers have done it successfully. I think with exorcism films, it's a lot like with Jaws and shark films. Like after Jaws, lots of films to do with shark attacks were made, but none even approached the level of brilliance that Jaws had. And I think it's a bit like that with exorcism films. Like there have been a lot of films made to do with exorcisms, but none have ever approached the level of brilliance of, obviously, William Friedkin's The Exorcist in the 70s. But obviously I'm interested to see the attempts that people make at it. One of the newest ones is, of course, The Last Exorcism. Overall, I thought it was a good attempt. Like, I did think it was well made, well acted, and suspenseful. It was genuinely frightening in parts, and I thought it was good for the most part overall. But, and there is a massive but coming here, and I will elaborate on it in a minute. It was good except for one major flaw that I will address in due course. The plot of the film, I thought, was original and it was interesting. It's shot in one of these like found footage type formats, like through the handheld camera type format, which hasn't been done with demons and possession so far as I know. Well, okay, demons yes, paranormal activity, but with exorcism I don't think it has been. So I mean, to be honest, see the whole concept of making a film from found footage, at first I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, I liked Cloverfield, but and Paranormal Activity I do enjoy, but the fact that you do get a lot of films that are doing it now, I think the gimmick has worn off. I would rather not have to see very many more of these, because sometimes they do just prove to be very disorientating, like the camera constantly shaking about. It's kind of annoying. But I was willing to suffer it for this film because it had never been done with this before. Chances are, if it had been a film about a bunch of people going into the woods and coming across a ghost, I probably would not have given it the time. The plot of the film is you've got this Christian minister in America's deep south, and he's practiced exorcisms throughout most of his career, but he is a fraud. Like, he's never obviously came across one that's real, and he uses it just merely to get money out of people. But then one day he hears of like a story where a child suffering from mental illness had actually been killed during an exorcism somewhere, and that causes him to have like a crisis of faith, and he promptly sets out to disprove exorcism as like a fraud. So what he does is he picks the first letter from the top of his pile, people who have wrote into him to ask for exorcisms, and he takes the camera crew and he goes to film it to show it for the fraud that it is. And he goes to this house somewhere in the deep south, in the middle of nowhere, and he comes across this family. It's like a father, a daughter, and a son, and they believe that the daughter is possessed. And he conducts this exorcism using using special effects, smoke and mirrors type techniques. Like, I think he has a cross at one point that it's wired to like emit steam, which was quite amusing. And I must say that the actor that plays the Reverend, he brings a lot of energy to it at first, which I really enjoy, because you can imagine all these pastors and reverends and what have you in the deep south of America. You can imagine them really being like this, but of course it gets more serious throughout the course of the film as a result of witnessing like the daughter. I mean, obviously the exorcism, the faux exorcism that he puts up doesn't solve anything, And what happens is, I think it's actually very interesting. What happens is, throughout the course of the film, the girl does behave in a manner as though she were possessed. But what's interesting is that throughout most of the film, there is always a level of ambiguity surrounding it. Like, yes, it is possible that she's possessed. Like, you see her doing some quite creepy things, like you see her bones, like her limbs and her neck twitch in these strange, weird ways, and it's creepy. And then she'll give these sort of haunting, maddening stares towards the camera, as if she's just completely out of it. And she talks in this strange voice. But then, on the other side, the possibility is still there that she is just very traumatized. She's very mentally ill. And of course, you didn't have that with the original Exorcist film. I mean, in the original Exorcist, it was completely unquestionable that she was possessed by something supernatural. Like, I mean, you had the head twisting round, you had the objects moving by themselves. There's none of that here. So yeah, the window is always there that she isn't possessed. She's just very mentally ill, and that makes it very interesting. In fact, that almost adds another layer of creepiness to it. And I must say, the acting is very good as well. Like, I touched on the acting of the main character a minute ago. The possessed girl, I think, really puts a lot of effort into it. Like, she really gives this her all, and I must say, see the first, in fact, every part of the film, bar the last 10 minutes, I think is good. It's not excellent. It's not terrifying, but it does what it says in the tin. It is quite creepy. It is sort of menacing, and there is this level of ambiguity that just fills you with a level of dread throughout it, and it's really interesting, and it plays out very well. But then, of course, we have the ending, and I think the ending, it ruined the film for me. The ending probably took this film's rating down by 2 points, because it just, if you know the meaning of the expression jumping the shark, you'll know what that sums up exactly what this ending does. It is just, I mean, it takes the subtle, clever ambiguity of the film thus far, and it just chucks it out the window. It just completely gets rid of it, and it's such a shame, because they had something, and they could have made a decent film, but they just completely ruin it. They completely mess it up for themselves by revealing whether or not she is possessed. They reveal it completely, and the tension is eliminated, reduced to nil. And in the very end scene of the film, we see a sequence of events that's so preposterous, so antithetical to the subtle tone of the film so far. It really does just throw you off and take you out of the film completely. And this isn't limited to me. I mean, I've read a few other reviews that have said, I mean, it's not good, not great. Like, build-up's fairly creepy, the ambiguity's quite clever, performances are great, but then just the ending is just completely ridiculous. Yeah, and I think it is such a shame, because they could have, I mean, it wouldn't have been a great horror film. It probably wouldn't have even been particularly good, but it would have been something. It would have even just been average, and that's more than you can say for a lot of horror films nowadays. Just for it to be average, just for it to have some ounce of cleverness and good storytelling. But no, they completely ruin it on an ending that's frivolous and just completely at odds with the tone of the rest of the film. So yeah, I mean, this review is quite short, I think, in comparison to some of my other reviews. As a rating, I'm going to give it 4 out of 10, as in just below average, and that's purely because of the ending. I think if that ending hadn't been there, it could have been a solid 6 out of 10, as in good. I'm recommending it. But just with that ending, it completely ruins it. It really does. I hope they do a director's cut or something one day. I'm not sure if I would watch it again, but I think they really did themselves an injustice by giving it this ridiculous ending. So yeah, 4 out of 10. I would recommend it if you do like horror films, if you do like issues of possession and exorcism, because it it does have some decent scares in it. It does have a good atmosphere for the most part. It is quite creepy. But it uses the sort of handheld camera technique to its advantage. Like, it's not tiring as it usually is. So I would say go and see it if you are interested in horror films and possession and what have you. Just beware that awful ending.